Belle is a sprawling mess of a movie that somehow has garnered glowing critical reviews, despite being one of the most confused, inconsistent anime movies I have ever seen. In this video, I will explore the good aspects, but mostly this is about several aspects of the story that made me really not care for it. If I had to boil it down to a single issue, it would be this. Having interesting themes and ideas is not the same thing as exploring interesting themes and ideas. If Belle explored all the interesting ideas it presents, it would be a fantastic movie. It would also be 10 hours long. The story is instead pulled in so many directions that practically none of it is fleshed out in any satisfying way, and it went far beyond my suspension of disbelief to the point of eye-rolling disinterest, making its high points land weakly due to my complete lack of investment. And then any hopes I had of an overall complete package were shattered by a bafflingly stupid final arc that technically concludes the story but fails to resolve the conflicts it introduces and undermines the themes that it specifically chooses to focus on. In this review, I will first give a general overview of the themes and plot elements in Belle. The first part of this review will be relatively spoiler-free, only talking about the setup of plots. But this is not the review you want if you want to go into this movie blind. The second half of this review will contain a lot of spoilers, because it's easy to generalize about things that I liked in the movie, but to fully explore what I didn't like, I really have to talk about specific story elements. Let me get a couple things out of the way. First, visually, this movie is masterful. There are some very creative depictions of internet communication and huge, powerful, long, sweeping shots around environments. While it was maybe a little bit disappointing how much of this movie is 3D animation, if you were looking for the hand-drawn look of an anime, it also makes the most of it with some very good character designs and some extremely detailed and dense scenes. And it also creates a huge distinction between the real world and the U. The digital realm is called the U. Speaking of the animation, apparently British studio Cartoon Saloon helped out with the 3D visuals. While I don't think of breathtaking 3D animation when I think of their catalog, they did a really good job here. The digital setting is also fantastic for suspension of disbelief. While there are still some elements that really should have been developed better, like how anything in the U works, because there's an awful lot of empty buildings and characters just milling around in large open spaces, or how much of a mental dive the software is, because characters seem to walk around the real world while also controlling their avatars a lot, but okay, there's a lot of world building that maybe should have been done in the U. But back to the main point. My complaints with suspension of disbelief mainly come from some scenes in the real world. Two particular scenes I'll get to later are so incredibly stupid that I don't care about the themes in them at all. They feel like hastily written soap opera scenes. Back to giving out praise, I also have to mention that the English dub is really good. Usually, dubs of anything with singing are a recipe for disaster, but this is a really good dub and the production was committed to it. There's a full English version of the movie's soundtrack, mixed by the exact same sound engineers that made the Japanese dub. A lot of people won't give the dub the time of day anyway, but for what it's worth, I really enjoyed it. This is a really complete package of a dub. Lastly, I should say that I went into this movie without many expectations. I expected something related to Beauty and the Beast and some singing, as those were both promised by the 2-sentence blurb about the movie on the theater's website, but I had never seen any other movies by Hosoda before this. And besides a general sense of what Summer Wars is about, I knew nothing about his style. I guess I also know that Wolf Children has one really cool long tracking shot in it. But after seeing Belle, I am far less enthusiastic about the rest of his catalog, and will be approaching it with dramatically lowered expectations. And that's because a fantastic production quality is not the whole story of a film, and I think this movie really wasted all its incredible effort. There are 3 main plots that actually get full development in this story. Let's talk about what they are. The problem with just giving a general idea of these plots is it's hard to give a sense of their execution. As I said before, there's many good ideas and themes in this movie, but the way they are used was extremely lacking. First, let's talk about our main character and her life. Suzu Naito is a high school student with a single father and very few close friends. Many people at school try to involve her in activities, but she actively resists joining any new groups because of her own personal hang-ups. Aside from her father, there's Shinobu, the childhood friend crush, Ruka, the popular girl, Shinjiro, who's a lovable dumb jock, and most importantly, Hiroka, the tech-savvy girl who gets Suzu to sign up for the central tech that drives the story, the U. She's like, hey, check out this thing, you should use it. And Suzu does, and it changes everything. Suzu is able to be happy and uninhibited in the virtual world, basically immediately. She becomes the overnight pop star sensation Belle, but no one knows who she is except for Hiroka. The plot with Suzu's real social circle is mostly generic teen relationship drama, with all the tropes and cliches that come with the territory. It's nothing amazing by itself and would be fine if it served as a backdrop for the second plot. Instead, it mostly interrupts the other plots to distract Suzu with some mundane bullshit. The supporting cast is not unique enough to be a main plot focus, yet here they are. This alone does not make Belle a bad movie, but it has remarkably little to do with the U. You might imagine a plot development like character A sees character B with another guy in the U, and it's a big misunderstanding, but instead we get that kind of thing, but it just happens in the real world at school instead. But speaking of Belle, next is the plot I was most excited about. The exploration of what it means to become a digital celebrity. This is an idea that anyone who creates content online will relate to in some way. And well, you're watching this on my YouTube channel. Clearly I had some things to grab onto in here. Everyone wants to be a big star. I don't think criticizing anime is my big ticket to the top, but the idea of blowing up overnight is both exciting and terrifying. So I was disappointed when this aspect got the least screen time of the three main plots. There's a simultaneous outpouring of love and hate from the internet at large as Belle quickly gains loyal stans and bitter haters. There's wild media speculation about her identity. Yet we see more of the internet's reaction to her than her own reaction to sudden fame. Belle only gets as far as her first planned virtual concert before the focus is wrenched in a completely different direction when the Beast appears, with just some sparse elements of Suzu's double life showing up occasionally. The themes are here, but there's a clear lack of focus on this aspect of the story. Also, there's a huge problem to discuss with how the movie handles the topic of online anonymity that I can't properly discuss until the spoiler section later. There's a lot of assumptions made in the course of Belle becoming a celebrity, and the movie pretty much leaves you to fill in most of what you don't see with your knowledge of internet culture. While I respect not spending too much time on this when there's other things to get to, it really misses the chance to see Belle develop compared to Suzu. Can Belle interact with people better anonymously than Suzu can in person? We skip that and only see Hiroka as Belle's manager without any sense of how even their relationship has changed from the start of the movie. The only times Belle interacts with someone in the U that we see are plots involving the Beast. So now we get to the third plot, where everything becomes a lot more contrived and stupider. The Beauty and the Beast plot. What I'm about to say is a bunch of stuff that happens a fair bit into the movie, so it feels kinda spoilery, but that's because the Beast doesn't even appear until around the 30-minute mark. Everything here is established in a single poorly conceived scene. The Beast just shows up and wrecks Belle's concert because in the ill-defined world of the U, one person can just ruin everything, like a streaker at a sports match. A really violent streaker who beats up the security guards. And then we get a lot of exposition. As an aside here, there's exposition throughout the movie, but most of it is presented in clever ways visually, with a journey through news feeds and overlapping windows piling up on each other to create a cacophony that is the hive mind of the internet. But here, Hiroka just fills Suzu in on who the Beast is because she's heard a bunch of rumors about him. And then she also explains the U's vigilante security force. This scene has an incredible amount of tell-don't-show. It sticks out like a sore thumb. The only other exposition close to this bad is the opening narration about what the U is. And that would have been fine if it was just moved to when Suzu actually signs on for the first time. The opening song didn't really need the context, it's an in media res scene. But the opening narration at least clearly establishes what the movie is about from the get-go, the theme of online identity. You can be anything you want to be in the U. So, the Beast. At this point in the movie, there's a lot of stuff from Beauty and the Beast that suddenly just gets thrown in. There's the Beast, of course, with a cape with weird patterns that characters repeatedly insist are bruises on his back. Small thought, maybe just change the character design slightly to actually show his back. You don't even have to entirely remove the cape, just have it pushed aside. Also, if you were reading subtitles for this movie, you may have seen this character called the Dragon. The English dub just straight up calls him the Beast, and it's Beauty and the Beast, so I'm calling him the Beast. But this story also needs a Gaston. This Gaston is called Justine, the leader of a self-proclaimed law enforcement group in the U, which has no real moderation, apparently. Again, suspension of disbelief that having billions of people and no moderation didn't turn out badly. This Gaston also apparently has corporate sponsors for some reason. This is just another theme that's not explored. Anyway, Suzu and Hiroka don't really care about Gaston right now. They and the rest of the world really want to know who the Beast is. They probably should care a bit more about Gaston, as his trump card is a weapon that reveals the true identity of the user. So for the rest of this review, I will call him Captain Dox, commander of the White Knights, because that's basically what they are. Now, obviously having your identity revealed matters a lot for the Beast and for Belle, but is really only a threat for these specific people, because we see a lot of people in this movie who openly tie their real-world identities to their avatars in-game. Hope none of them ever causes a commotion. There's no real way to punish them, I guess. One other major element in this story that is said to exist in the exposition of this scene, really to only serve the Beauty and the Beast plot, is a castle. A castle that the Beast retreats to, but not one of the other 5 billion people in the U can find. Like I said, really lacking world building. Oh yeah, I didn't even talk about how there's some AI characters in the U that help the Beast. Why? Who knows, they just do. They're like the furniture servants, but with no backstory whatsoever, and they're the only AI we see in this whole movie. But yeah, that's kind of just all thrown at you all in one scene to introduce the Beauty and the Beast plot. And now that's really all I can say about the plot without going into ending spoilers. The third plot starts really screwing up everything else because despite being the main idea of the movie, at least going by its title and advertising, it feels like this is shoved into a movie that wasn't originally written for it. You could have a perfectly fine movie with just the first 2 plots and cut the Beast completely out of it, which is a pretty damning thing to say about a movie that takes heavy inspiration from Beauty and the Beast. If you just want a numerical score, here it is. 5 out of 10. Most of this score is for the visuals. I really like most of the character designs, especially the really wild characters in the U. I like the ideas it tries to explore, but the more I think about this movie, the worse it becomes in my regards. Giving it something like a 7 out of 10 would be saying, it's not perfect, but this movie falls so far below that mark that anything above a 5 does not convey how thoroughly disappointed I was in it. As that's all I can say without giving away specific elements, there will be specific spoilers from here on in, because I really have to describe a few things from this movie. To talk about specific bizarre mangling in the story, let's start with a dead mother. It is established very early on that our main character Suzu's mother died when she was young. She's notably absent, there's a conspicuous picture of her in the dining room, the movie doesn't even have to say she's dead, it's pretty obvious. The movie then takes several scenes to talk about her being dead, and to show her death. We'll get to that in a second. I would first like to note here that Suzu's main hang-up early in the movie is being unable to sing after her mother's death. Her classmates trying to force her into karaoke makes her run away and literally vomit, but being a different person in the U allows her to open up and sing. So it's a strange decision to show the musical interactions with her mother growing up being focused around playing the piano. Musical literacy is important to singers, but maybe don't use a piano to show a lost connection if your main character then never touches an instrument for the rest of the movie. Another weird thing, Suzu's mother died in a river, which again, we're getting to. Is this related to the water and giant whales that are in Belle's musical performances in the U? I have no idea, but it feels like there isn't any reason. The performances are just there to look cool and have no thematic connection to the other notable use of water in the story. So how did the mom die in a river anyway? Because it's important later, the movie has a flashback to show us, and the presentation leaves more than a bit to be desired. Yes, it's a flashback presented as being Suzu's memory of the incident, but it comes off like Superman's dad dying in Man of Steel. So the river in town is flooding. A whole lot of people are standing around on the banks, gawking at a small child on the gravel island in the middle of the river. Little girl Suzu screams tearfully at her mother to not go out there, but her mother puts on a life jacket and wades out into the river. Hard cut to 2 other people lifting the little girl out of the river safe and sound, and Suzu's mother is gone and never to be seen again. Well, what happened? I'm not trying to say that a flooding river isn't dangerous, but you made a point of showing the exact circumstance of her mother's death without actually showing us her mother's death. She clearly reached the stranded girl, and the stranded girl got back safely. Did her mother get 3 feet from the shore and then get pulled under, and everyone was like, oh well, there she goes. This is so sad. Alexa, play Baka Mai Tai. The real kicker is how many extras this scene has, most of whom were just standing back watching. No, this is not the movie trying to throw in commentary on disaster response and the tendency of people to stand back when they could be helping. Or at least I don't think it is. It's not like the people are filming it on their phones or something like that. It's just a really puzzlingly presented scene. But I don't even want to take more time on this because we can go much, much stupider. Let's talk about the conclusion of the movie, the Beast's identity. As this is partly Beauty and the Beast, the final act starts with Gaston, Captain Dox, and the White Knights raiding the Beast's castle. Despite them having the castle surrounded, the Beast still escapes without being seen, despite just flying away with no cover. Couldn't he just log out if they catch him anyway? But none of that stuff matters because through a song that Belle sang for the Beast, Suzu and Hiroka find out who the Beast is anyway. The Beast is an angsty, angry teenager with a frail, pathetic younger brother who he wants to protect. That younger brother is streaming online telling the internet at large that they should help the Beast, and humming the song Belle sang. They find the stream through the power of having like 500 browser windows open at once. Why is the Beast so angry, and why does he have to protect his brother? Well, live on the stream, their angry father barges in and screams at them and physically threatens them. That's where the bruises on the Beast's cape come from. The avatar reflects the user, and this dad has been beating his kids. I'm not objecting to the dark turn here. I'm not even questioning this guy abusing his kids on a live camera feed. This guy has absolutely no shits to give. What I do question is a streaming service that lets anyone watching just directly call the streamer. Is this a real thing? Who thought this service was a good idea? I'm sure that would never be abused, just like how the U never has a problem with moderation for billions of users. So anyway, Suzu calls them up, but the Beast does not believe that Suzu is Belle, so she can't just directly ask them who they are to help them. Because of this, Suzu has to publicly reveal herself in the U, and then has a big emotional song. And now, this is where 2 of the biggest elements in the entire movie completely fall apart to give an ill-conceived, extremely dangerous conclusion. Remember that huge, we'll get to this later, about online identity earlier in this video? The Beast's true identity is someone who needs help. Despite trying to remain anonymous, and the opposition forces of this movie being a clear stand-in for doxing, this story seems to make the argument that there should be no anonymity online. The Beast is only able to be helped after his identity is revealed, and Suzu is only able to help him after revealing her own identity as well. A lot of people will probably object to this stance outright, as anonymity is very valuable and merging public and online identity is the stuff of totalitarian governments. But let's assume there's a reasonable point here. Well, now the story takes that point to the most illogical conclusion possible. So let's tie this in with the dead mom. The theme from the dead mother, clearly stated in the film dialogue, is that Suzu's mother chose to take a risk to help someone else at the expense of her own safety. It was, at least, noble. Just like that scene, it's now time for Suzu to take an enormous risk while there's many other people around who could help, but choose to wait on the sidelines, leaving the main character to go into danger all alone for no apparent reason. You would think that the reason Suzu reveals herself as Belle would be to achieve something as Belle. Mobilize her legions of fans, bring attention to the abuse going on. There's about to be a scene where they track the Beast's real location to Tokyo, maybe use a superstar connection, and get people to go help. No, actually, that would make too much sense and have too much payoff for having a story based around connectivity on the internet. Instead, Suzu decides to go to Tokyo all by herself to help the Beast and his brother. No adults, no plan, not even an address. She's just going to wander around the general area until she finds them. At the baseline, this is a stupid plan. Even in movies I love like Kimi no Na wa, when characters do something like this, it's pretty stupid. But here it's made magnitudes worse by the presence of many other characters who could easily help, and Suzu going into clear danger. She's going alone to the house of an angry man who beats his kids. Holy shit, do you not see anything wrong with this? Before Suzu can learn the exact wrong lesson from her mother, they have to find the Beast. Luckily, Hiroka pulls some crime show-style investigative bullshit by hearing unique chimes in the background of the live stream and then enhancing, like it's Blade Runner. I thought this cliche died a decade ago. It's a digital image. You literally cannot turn a blur in a window into a clear image of specific buildings. The information is not there. I can buy connecting to what Facebook wishes Metaverse was from anywhere in the world with just your phone and special earplugs, but this is just stupid. Despite all odds, Suzu does find the Beast and his brother standing outside in the rain. But Angry Dad is also there, and he's angry. Suzu's plan is to shield the brothers with her body like the Beast would shield his brother or the Beast shielded her in the U. Angry Dad responds by grabbing her by the face, gouging out some of her cheek. Whoa, this is serious. And then they just stare at each other until Angry Dad walks away. The Beast says Suzu has inspired him to fight. And that's the last we see of this plot. Whoop-de-doo, what a big help you were, Suzu. You did nothing to improve the situation and likely made it worse. Everyone knows that domestic violence is solved by the victim fighting back. It's just sunshine and roses after that. I'd like to tell you what happens after that, but I have literally no idea. They just leave these abused kids in a dangerous environment. At least Suzu's mom got that kid out of the river. The movie pretends this is a happy ending now. Suzu can sing in public again, and that's the only part of us that really mattered, right? The end. I was convinced the abusive father would turn out to be Captain Dox, because they have the same attitude and we have 5 old women as the creators of the popular software. Why not have this guy involved too? Oh yeah, I guess I didn't touch on that. A bunch of old ladies from the local choir have known that Suzu is Belle all along. And at least I got the impression they're implied to be the 5 voices that created the U. Because if they're not the voices, it's awfully weird to have a group of 5 characters and another group of 5 unknown characters in the story with hidden identities you never see. I guess I never mentioned the voices before because, well, the voices are mentioned but they don't matter at all. Another pointless plot element. Anyway, the abusive father is not Captain Dox. They have similar voices but they're not even the same voice actor. I looked that up to confirm it. After that long rant, that last aside isn't like a negative, by the way. Not everything needs to be predictable like that, it probably shouldn't be. The Beast himself was already a surprise, being some random guy that characters had never met. That was much more interesting than the Beast actually being one of the 3 male characters already in the story. It was also interesting that Belle and the Beast have no romantic connection. It's the use of what the audience expects to create a surprise. But let's wrap that back around to my very first point of this whole review. Having interesting themes and ideas is not the same thing as exploring interesting themes and ideas. There was a gigantic amount of potential in this movie. Most of it remains only potential, because simply having an interesting element does not make the story itself interesting. And the ending, as I just discussed, is complete horseshit. You might object to my negative review here at the end, or more likely already objected to it in the comments, and ask why I'm not talking about any of the good scenes. To which I'd respond, which ones? Tell me, because I really didn't find many scenes to be particularly good. The whole point of the first half of this review is to express that there's a lot of good ideas that don't pan out to much in this movie. The music scenes were good. The opening scene was probably the best in the movie because context only weighs things down, and there's no context to it. Suzu's final song after being revealed would be fantastic if I had investment in the characters at that point. There's the one awkward conversation in the train station that's a long-held shot, even as the characters walk out of frame, and that was interesting. Kind of the opposite of a tracking shot. But that goes back to visuals and production quality, which again were really good. The actual substance of this scene, however, is just stupid high school drama with a bunch of barely developed characters I didn't care about in the slightest. The lack of significant character focus left the scenes designed for major payoffs flat. I can certainly call a scene good just for creative visuals. I mean, that's basically every one of my top 10 kill-a-kill moments. So it would be hypocritical of me to ignore visuals while also making videos like that. So one last scene of visual interest. If I could easily just watch specific scenes of this movie again, one scene I'd look at would be Belle and the Beast's dance scene. It takes very, very heavy inspiration from the same scene in the Disney version, as its direct visual nods feel like the scene intended to make the viewer reflect on the themes and characters in Belle compared to the traditional story. I think it's also interesting to note Disney's version of this scene for also pushing visual spectacle and technological innovation. This scene was Disney's first foray into 3D animation, and it's still beautiful. And now there's Belle to show how much further technology has come. To say it one more time, Belle's visuals are great. I just wanted something positive to end this review on. That's all I have to say about Belle. This is a movie that you can describe in many ways that make it sound good. If you just look at the themes it has with the plot threads, you can put together a compelling picture in your mind. There have been many movies I've seen in the past I didn't really like, but do have a clear thematic through line and just didn't particularly appeal to me. But this movie is resoundingly not a full package. It's a gigantic mess pressed into a frame, but the frame covers up some of the best parts, while other parts stick out beyond the frame itself, clearly dangling and unfinished. It's perfectly fine if you liked this movie, but this is not a film that should have a must-watch medal on Metacritic and a reported 14-minute standing ovation at Cannes Film Festival. This film is a mess, I am kinda angry, and this is the end of the review.